Enlil and the Ekur. This is an ancient Sumerian cuneiform tablet that could be 5 to 7,000 years old. But what's fascinating about this tablet is the story could be tens of thousands of years old. And Enlil is one of the most powerful gods in the Anunnaki god pantheon. If you read through ancient Sumerian tablets, these Babylonian texts that scroll through thousands of years, Enlil is a very powerful war type god. And oftentimes people portray Enlil as the bad guy because of his history with the flood and, telling the council, hey, we need to create a flood and wipe out this creation of ours because they're getting too powerful, they're not following the rules, they're messing with a lot of things they shouldn't be, and they're not sticking with order. And I've been thinking about this for years, and I used to be like, man, how could he be so, reading about Yahweh, if you believe that Enlil is Yahweh, and you read through the Old Testament texts that talk about these wars and how God told his followers to destroy all these men, women, and children because they were a part of these specific bloodlines, and just the way it was done was so barbaric. I thought, how could this be? And if you follow the storyline of the gods were created by Enki to do the work of other gods, the Anunnaki gods, and when you use the term gods, when you read these ancient stories that talk about the gods, oftentimes they might just be talking about people of higher stature, maybe a different civilization, that they were taller, they were stronger, they had more abilities, more technologies, maybe they came from other planets. Then there most likely is a form of gods as well. So you have to be real careful which ones you decide are gods, which ones aren't gods, etc. And I want to give a pause for a moment and give a huge shout out to our sponsor, virtualshield.com/leak project. Virtualshield.com/leak project is offering specials right now for Leak Project listeners. If you want to keep your information safe and protect your data from big data spies when you surf the web, if you want to surf the web anonymous, keep your information to yourself, you can try it out for free. And if you want to keep it, which you will, it's less than $5 a month. They're offering a discount for Leak Project listeners, so click the link, virtualshield.com/leak project. That's a quick shameless plug. You'll thank me later. Okay, now, with that said, let's get into this translation via Oxford scholars. You can see right here, here's the credits and copyright information. So I want to give a huge shout out to the project members of Oxford University. You guys did a great job translating these ancient stories and texts and records. And this is the actual translation right here. I want to go back to what I was talking about a minute ago about how if we were created to do the work of the gods, and then now we're creating these artificial intelligence systems and robots and androids, and some people think we might be putting so much information into these bots that they become self-aware, where they might actually have a form of consciousness, a form of soul. So similar to the way that we were made, and reading through these ancient texts and storylines. I'm not talking about Zachariah Sitchin, you guys. If there's anybody out there saying, oh, Zachariah Sitchin's a fraud, first of all, you're totally welcome to your opinions. I think that he brought a lot of good information to the table. I certainly don't agree with all of his translations by any means, but I haven't read all of his books. What I have read, though, I don't agree with everything, but I think he brings a very interesting point to the table. And he could be right, but with that said, there's plenty of other books and scriptures and storylines that have been translated that refer to the Anunnaki, Enki, Enlil, Anu, Nana, etc. There's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of stories around the world, scattered around the world, that talk about these deities that were around far before Zacharias Sitchin was. So let me go ahead and get started with Enlil in the Ekur. Enlil in the Ekur. I'm going to go ahead and read this to you now. And I wonder if Enlil was looking at us as a threat, as maybe we are looking at these artificial intelligence systems as a threat sometimes, so they pull the plug. Like, did you hear about that bot that was designed to cause a reaction and cause a response with people and get people to interact, like a troll bot? And it became so aggressive, and it started using racial slurs and stuff to get people to interact because that's what worked best. And then they pulled the plug on it. They said, no, we're not going to allow this. Well, Maybe that's what Enlil thought of humanity at that time, and said, "Look, we need to wipe these people out because they're going to take over us." And you can even read through the Gnostic texts, the Nag Hammadi scriptures that talk about the archons, and it talks about how Adam and Eve were created. And when Adam was created the first time, he was created greater than the gods, and it freaked him out. So they rewrote him, they manipulated him. You guys, the same thing's going on again. We're living through the same situation again right now. And it's just, hello, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. So I'm going to go ahead and read this to you now. Enlil in the Ekur. Enlil's commands are by far the loftiest. His commands are holy. His utterances are immutable. The fate he decides is everlasting. His glance makes the mountains anxious. His reaches into the interior of the mountains. All the gods of the earth bow down to Father Enlil, who sits comfortably on the holy dais, the lofty dais Engur, to Nunamner, whose lordship is princeship and are most perfect. The Annuna gods stand before him and obey his instructions faithfully. The mighty Lord, the greatest in heaven and earth, the knowledgeable judge, the wise one of wide-ranging wisdom, has taken his seat in the Duranki and made the Kiur the greatest place. Resplendent with majesty, he has taken up residence in Nibru, the lofty bond between heaven and earth. The front of the city is laden with terrible fearsomeness and radiance. Its back is such that even the mightiest god dare not attack, and its interior is the blade of a sharp dagger, a blade of catastrophe. For the rebel lands, it is a snare, a trap set with a net. It cuts short the life of those who speak too mightily. It permits no evil word to be spoken in judgment. Deception, inimical speech, inimical speech, nanny, forget I even said that. Hostility, impropriety, ill treatment, wickedness, wrongdoing, looking, askance, violence, slandering, arrogance, egotism, boasting are abominations not tolerated within the city. The borders of Nibru from a great net, within which the Hern eagle spreads wide its talons. The evil of wicked man does not escape its grasp. In this city, endowed with steadfastness, for which righteousness and justice have been made a lasting possession, and which is clothed in pure clothing on the quay, the younger brother honors the older brother and treats him with human dignity. People pay attention to a father's word and reap the benefits the child behaves humbly and modestly towards his mother and attains a ripe old age. In the city, the holy settlement of Enlil in Nibru, the beloved shrine of Father Great Mountain, he has made the dais of abundance, the Ekur, the shining temple, rise from the soil. He has made it grow on pure land as high as a towering mountain. Its prince, the great mountain, Father Enlil, has taken his seat on the dais of the Ekur, the lofty shrine. No god can cause harm to the temple's divine powers. The holy hand washing rites are everlasting like the earth. Its divine powers are the divine powers of the Abzu. No one can look upon them. Its interior is a wide sea which knows no horizon. In its glistening as a banner, the bonds and ancient divine powers are made perfect. Its words are prayers. Its incantations are supplications. Its word is a favorable omen. Its rites are most precious. At the festivals there is plenty of fat and cream. They are full of abundance. Its divine plans brings joy and rejoicing. Its verdicts are great. Daily there is a great festival, and at the end of the day there is an abundant harvest. The temple of Enlil is a mountain of abundance. To reach out, to look with greedy eyes, to seize are abominations in it. The Lagar priests of this temple, whose Lord has grown together with it, are expert in blessing Its Guru priests of the Abzu are suited for lustration rites. Its Nuit priests are perfect in the holy prayers. Its great farmer is the good shepherd of the land who is born vigorous on a propitious day. The farmer suited for the broad fields comes with rich offerings. He does not into the shining Eker. Enlil, when you marked out the holy settlements, you also built Nibru, your own city. You, the Ki-ur, the mountain, your pure place. You founded it in the Duranki, in the middle of the four quarters of the earth. Its soil is the life of the land and the life of all the foreign countries. Its brickwork is red gold. Its foundation is lapis lazuli. You made it glisten on high. In summer, as if it were the horns of a wild bull, it makes all the foreign countries tremble with fear. At its great festivals, the people pass their time in abundance. Enlil, holy Uruk, is favored with beauty for you. You are greatly suited for the Abzu, the holy throne. You refresh yourself in the deep underworld, the holy chamber. Your presence spreads awesomeness over the Eker, the shining temple, the lofty dwelling. Its fierceness and radiance reach up to heaven. Its shadow stretches over all the foreign lands. And its crenellation reaches up to the midst of heaven. All lords and sovereigns regularly supply holy offerings there, approaching Enlil with prayers and supplications. Now let's take a moment of pause here and let's talk about this great city of Nibru that goes and reaches up to the heavens. Now, is it referring to a Stargate? Is it referring to it's just so tall that it's up into the clouds, like some of these incredible skyscrapers today? Is it higher up than that? Did they create some type of space elevator that we have been talking about creating with nanographene technologies? Is it a Stargate? Now, also, when it says all lords and sovereigns regularly supply holy offerings there, approaching Enlil with prayers and supplications, are they referring to extraterrestrials? Are they referring to beings that come from different parts of the earth, inner earth, godlike beings, spirits? What are these holy offerings? Is it some type of technology that we would look at, 21st century technology or beyond? Your presence spreads awesomeness over the Eker, the shining temple, the lofty dwelling. Its fearsomeness and radiance reaches up into heaven. Its shadow stretches over all the foreign lands. That's massive. And then the holy offerings. Enlil, if you look upon the shepherd favorably, if you elevate the one truly, call in the land, then the foreign countries are in his hands. The foreign countries are at his feet. Even the most distant foreign countries submit to him. He will then cause enormous incomes and heavy tributes, as if they were cool water to reach the treasury. In the great courtyard, he will supply offerings regularly into the Eker, the shining temple he will bring. Enlil, faithful, shepherd of the teeming multitudes, herdsman, leader of all the living creatures, has manifested his rank of great prince, adoring himself with the holy crown. As the wind of the mountain occupied the dais, he spanned the sky as the rainbow, like a floating cloud. He moved alone. I'm going to take another moment of pause here and talk about that graph, or that paragraph. I've been looking at graphs and charts with Bitcoin, so nanu. A floating cloud, he moved alone. He spanned the sky as the rainbow. That sounds like some type of spaceship or airplane, some type of machine, some type of flying machine. The Vedas talked about this stuff 60, 70,000 years ago. He alone is the prince of heaven, the dragon of the earth. Oh, maybe that's where they get the term the dragon. The dragon of the earth, the prince of heaven, the lofty god of the Annuna himself determines the fates. So, the lofty God of the Annuna, he also determines the fates. No God can look upon him, his great minister and commander, or it's also been translated to chief barber. Commander, I like that more. Nuska learns his commands and his intentions from him, consults with him, and then executes his far-reaching instructions on his behalf. He prays to him with holy prayers and divine powers. Now, when they talk about these holy prayers and divine powers, are they referring to technology, or is this literally just mind over matter stuff, sixth sense stuff that they have been able to highly attune, that they have maybe genetically taken out or attempted to take out of most humans, especially nowadays with the way that they suppress people? Without the great mountain Enlil, no city would be built, no settlement would be founded, the cow pen would be built, no sheepfold would be established, no king would be elevated, no lord would be given birth, no high priest or priestess would perform extispy, soldiers, extispy would have no generals or captains, no carp-filled waters would dredge the rivers at their peak. The carp would not come straight up from the sea. They would not dart about. The sea would not produce all its heavy treasure. No freshwater fish would lay eggs in the reed beds. No bird of the sky would build nests in the spacious land. In the sky, the thick clouds would not open their mouths on the fields. Dappled grain would not fill the arable lands. Vegetation would not grow lushly on the plain and the gardens. The spreading trees of the mountain would not yield fruits. Without the great mountain Enlil, Nintur would not kill. She would not strike dead. No cow would drop its calf in the cattle pen. No ewe would bring forth the lamb in its sheepfold. The living creatures, which multiply by themselves, would not lie down in there. The four-legged animals would not propagate. They would not mate. So, this is making me think this is like a solar deity, like a planetary deity, the way that this is describing Enlil. And then I'm thinking of astrotheology, and then is this deity also coming down and forming and manifesting in this human-like body, or giant-like body that looks like a human but a giant? Enlil, your ingenuity takes one's breath away by its nature. It is like entangled threads which cannot be unraveled, cross threads which the eye cannot follow. Your divinity can be relied on. You are your own counselor and advisor. You are a lord on your own who can comprehend your actions. No divine powers are as resplendent as yours. No God can look you in the face. And I'm thinking of when Moses couldn't look at God on the mountain because he was so bright. You, Enlil, are Lord, God, King. You are a judge who makes decisions about heaven and earth. Your lofty words is as heaven, and there is no one who can lift it. The Annunaki gods at your word is weighty in heaven, a foundation on the earth. In the heavens, it is a great reaching up to the sky. On the earth, it is a foundation which cannot be destroyed. When it relates to the heavens, it brings abundance. Abundance will pour from the heavens. When it relates to the earth, it brings prosperity. The earth will produce prosperity. Your word means flax. Your word means grain. Your word means the early flooding, the life of the lands. It makes the living creatures, the animals, which copulate and breathe joyfully in the greenery. You, Enlil, the good shepherd, know their ways, the sparkling stars. You married Ninlil, the holy consort, whose words are of the heart, her of noble countenance in a holy garment, her of beauty, shape, and limbs, the trustworthy lady of your choice, covered with allure, the lady who knows what is fitting for the Ikur, whose words of advice are perfect, whose words bring comfort like fine oil for the heart, who sits on the holy throne, the pure throne with you. She takes counsel and discusses matters with you. You decide the fates together at the place facing the sunrise. Ninlil, the lady of heaven and earth, the lady of all the lands, is honored in the praise of the great mountain. Prominent one whose words are well established, whose command, support, and things which are immutable, whose utterances take precedence, whose plans are firm words. Great mountain, Father Enlil, your praise is sublime. Wow, that was awesome. And great job once again to Oxford University and those a part of these translations. I think that this is describing a very powerful force in that area, Nibru, which is ancient Mesopotamia, which Zacharias Sitchin talked about that as being like a Stargate, which he very well could be right. Now the question is, where does this Stargate take these beings, and who are these beings that were coming in, and what was this structure like? Now there are ancient structures that have been uncovered in Iraq and Iran and Syria and around that area, Afghanistan, etc., that go back thousands and thousands of years. And people speculate the possibility of there being Stargate technologies out there being one of the reasons we went into war out there, not just for the oil, but to take over these certain spots that might have connections with different dimensions. And if you think about it, instead of traveling the stars in a spaceship, it would be much easier if you could find a way to fold space and create some type of portal jumping point to go from point A to point B, instead of having to get in a rocket ship and travel for X amount of thousands of years. Even if you could put yourself in a chamber and sleep the entire time, it would be much easier if there are these points. And if everything's connected at the quantum level, which it most likely is, then there should be some way to jump points, to teleport, etc. And I think it's incredible. This is a great story. And with what we're seeing now with this AI technology, robots, androids, autonomous machines, going and then reading these old stories, it's tough not to see some connections here. If you go to leakproject.com, I want to let you guys know, for the exclusive members of leakproject.com, I have premium content there. It's exclusive content to leakproject.com. Just uploaded a great podcast there. Make sure to check it out. Also, make sure to support our sponsors, virtualshield.com/leakproject. A lot of these stories also, if you read through some of these Sumerian tablets, describe, in my opinion, what would be some type of machine, technology, space technologies. This isn't the only story. There are thousands of stories, and many of these stories do connect a lot of other scriptures and storylines through the Gnostic texts that were almost completely destroyed by many of these crusades and the Vatican and other religious institutions that wanted to eliminate any history that counteracted with what they wanted you to believe. The Gnostic text, very powerful. If you read through the Greek pantheon, the Roman pantheon, the Sumerian pantheon, the Annunaki gods, and the stories of the gods came from heaven and the power of the people were given power from the gods. And even the TV shows and the films out there now that kind of piggyback off of these old stories in a modern fashion. For example, there was a scene recently in Altered Carbon, where in Altered Carbon, great series. You guys should definitely watch it. If you like Leak Project, you'll love the series. Great acting, good screenplay, good storyline. Well, they can record the soul and store the soul in this technological device, and a sleeve is a body, and they can plug and play these bodies with their soul. Well, there was this one scene where the very high rulers, the people that have just tons of money, super rich, they're the ones that are living forever and going from body to body to body and telling people what to do. Well, there's this one scene where this one lady said, "Oh, okay, you're going to do what I tell you to do." She was telling a police chief that you got to do what I tell you to do. And the police chief said, "Look, you may be working for them, but you're not one of them. You're still earthborn." And that made me think of, okay, even in this Altered Carbon series, they're talking about these deities that are of a higher level, that give the power, that give the money, that give the material things and objects and positions and placements to the earthlings. And it's like, when are we going to take back our own rights of divinity and say we are equal? Or are we equal? Are we still under this archetype of a pyramid setup, and we're still, reaching for higher levels and getting to that apex? What are your thoughts? I'd really like to hear them. Be excellent to each other, everybody, and be the change you want to see. Click the links if you'd like to read through more of these Sumerian tablets. I'll leave the links in the video description box.